Hello, everyone, and welcome back for Module 1, Lesson 1. This is our first look into Module 1 and the text we're going to be reading, everything new. Module 0 didn't last for that long, but hopefully you learned a lot because we're going to be using the same skills we learned in Module 0 for Module 1. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into it. So, again, I always have some announcements for the beginning. So if you have not picked up your books yet for Module 1 and Module 2, I will be here for the rest of the week at school. So I'll be here until, let's say, 4 p.m. So please, please, please come by and pick up your books if you can. If you cannot make it to the school by 4 p.m., then please let me know by email, the question board, or by messaging me on Schoology, okay? Because you really need your textbooks, okay? The major assessment that was due Monday before midnight. If you did not get to it, message me, okay? And we'll see if we can figure something out because that is your first major grade. A lot of y'all did an incredible job, so great job turning it in and getting a great grade on it. But if you did not take it, please let me know, okay? Also, assignments. Please turn in your assignments if you have not already. A lot of the zeros have turned into grades because a lot of y'all are doing a great job of turning in your assignments. So thank you, thank you, thank you. If you have turned in all your assignments, great job, y'all. And also, there's a little app called Remind. It's where you put in your phone number or your parents' phone number, and whenever I send out a message on Remind, it texts you on your phone. So your parents can sign up for it, you can sign up for it. So it's a really nice reminder because you always have your phone on you. So if you would want me to set up a remind for the class, please let me know, okay? Because that was something I was thinking about doing. Also, if you see your name on this PowerPoint slide, great job. If you're on this PowerPoint slide, that means you have turned in all of your assignments, your major assessment, everything. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Keep up the great work, y'all. Like, honestly, just turn in your assignments, please. And, uh, and keep up with the pre-recorded lessons and stuff if you can't make it to the virtual class. Those are the keys to passing this class and the keys to success, okay? So great job if you're on this PowerPoint slide. So let's start getting into lesson 1 a little bit more. So this is something new for the beginning of the PowerPoint. It's the learning goals for what we're hoping to learn, right? For this module. So we're going to learn how to make inferences about the crossovers, the textbook, the text that we're going to be reading by using effective evidence, right? Remember module 0, we learned to annotate for evidence and gather all the information so we could use that to the strategies that we were learning, right? And then we're also going to learn how to identify specific language choices, right, that depict Josh Bell's identity and view of himself. And we're going to go into Josh Bell a little bit more. And we're going to, the keyword identity and the view of himself is a very, very important thing. So we're going to go and get into that a little bit more. But those are the learning goals for this lesson. So keep those in mind whenever we're going through it, okay? So the intro, okay? The intro, you know how we always do like an activity or I pose a question for y'all for the beginning of the lesson. This one's gonna be a little different. So as you can tell, the main thing of this lesson or this module in general is gonna be the power of storytelling. Our ability as humans to tell stories and communicate the information in a very effective manner, right? And storytelling could be about anything. For example, it could be about how you got your name, a family memory you have, or something someone did in your family that you remember, right? And it's always one that you love to hear, you love to read, or you love to tell, right? That is the power of stories. It stays with you. So here's a little story that I have from when I was a kid that always stuck with me, and it was always a great icebreaker for people. So whenever I was around, let's say 4 or 5, right? Broke my arm, my left arm, when I was a kid because I was pretending to be Superman. And I was running around the room, both my arms ahead of me, pretending like I was flying. And I ended up tripping over my sister's legs. She was like lying down on the ground, and I tripped. And whenever I fell, I heard something like crack in my arm. And that was the only time I ever broken a bone, because I was pretending to be Superman, right? And that's one of my favorite stories to tell, right? It gives you a little bit insight about me, about what I was like as a kid, and look into my childhood, right? That's the power of stories. It's something. It could be something personal to you where someone could relate to it, right? And that's what we're going to be doing for this module, and especially this lesson, is the power of storytelling. So let's move on. So important questions. Remember, important questions is always something you can't get away from in the modules and the lessons. These are the questions that we have to answer at the end of the lesson or the module, right? And here are the three. It's always essential question, focusing question, and content framing question. You know how later on maybe there's questions in there, but the essential question is, what is the power of storytelling? You know how I told you in the previous slide, storytelling is going to be a huge thing, right, in this module, and how powerful it can be in expressing yourself. So yeah, so we're going to be focusing on storytelling and how it's one of the most powerful forms that we use to express ourselves, our opinions, and communicate knowledge or information, right? Is a really, really good medium for getting information across. And the focusing question for this module is, what shapes Josh Bell's sense of himself and his world? So remember, the focusing question could change throughout the module, but for right now, this is the focusing question that you need to answer. And it's, what shapes Josh Bell's sense of himself and his world? So Josh Bell obviously is the second time that he's been mentioned already. He's the main character in the book that we're reading, The Crossover. And the book is basically written in his point of view and his life, right? He's the one basically narrating it. And you have to look at the keyword sense of himself, right? It's about his journey, his life, okay? And he's a storyteller, so he's going to go through a transformation, obviously. Remember, this focusing question we're going to answer at some point in the module. And the content framing question is, what do I notice and wonder about form and content in The Crossover? And you should already be used to notice and wonder by now. Remember, it's making observations or asking questions about the text whenever you're first looking at it, right? And form and content is a very, very big part of that, and we're going to get into that on the next slide, okay? So again, form and content. This is in the content framing question, is a very, very, very big part of this lesson. So as you can see, here are the definitions of form and content and examples of it. You can put this in your vocabulary journal under module 1 in your digital notebook if you want to. Again, that's up to you. That notebook or the journal is for you to look back on and review stuff later on in the class if you ever need a refresher. But again, form and content, this module 1, it's basically a deep exploration of the relationship between these two essential parts of the story. To tell a story, you need form and you need content. Okay, and we're going to explore how effectively combining these two, form and content, can create powerful storytelling. Okay, form is basically, I want to say it's basically the how, right? How it is written, right? How is the story told? How is the story written? What's the form of it? Content is the what. What is being written about? What is the actual content, the actual idea of what is being written, right? An example of form of content is basically a report card, right? A report card is the form that communicates content about your grade, right? So the report card is the form, and the content are the grades and how you got the grades. Hopefully that example makes a little bit of sense to you, okay? Or you can also see examples on the right side. A newspaper, a novel, the content is what is written on the newspaper or the novel. Okay, so next is storytelling. Remember, I emphasized in the beginning that storytelling is a very, very big part of it. It was even in the essential question. So obviously storytelling is going to be the biggest part of this entire module 1, and our ability to find out how impactful storytelling is going to be constantly throughout every single lesson, okay? So here's the definition of storytelling. And also, here's the definition of power. You know how the essential question basically said, what is the power of storytelling? Those are the two keywords in the essential question, right? And the more that you understand what the essential question is saying, the better you're going to be able to answer it. So if you want to put this again in your vocabulary journal under module 1 in your digital notebook, you can. I recommend you doing that for content form and these two definitions as well. Just going to help you um, gain a further understanding of it. Remember, that journal again is just for you, is not for a grade. Okay. And remember also sense of himself, right? That was the focusing question, right, for this module so far, is about Josh Bell and his sense of himself and his view of the world. And what sense of himself basically means is knowing oneself, right? It's knowing what you're about, your views, your beliefs, and you know, who you are as a person. That's basically what sense of himself means. So we're basically going to be, uh, while we're reading the book, it's going to be about Josh Bell's journey, right, and figuring out himself and where he is in the world, and you know, what his impact is, right? And remember, the focusing question is also related to the essential question um, of whenever you figure out what your um, sense of yourself is, you can tell the power of storytelling gets a lot bigger, right? You can tell stories about your life and how you fit in, right? Basically, the power of storytelling is that it helps us express who we are and why, right? It shows, you know, what shaped your view of of the world that you see or yourself, right? That's what storytelling can do. It can share your story to everybody, right? So here's a little bit more of the text that we're reading. Hopefully you have the book. If you don't have the book, please let me know. Okay, like I said in the beginning, you need the book. So the book is The Crossover. It was written by Kwame Alexander, right? It was published in 2014, so it's relatively new. And the format is very different than what you would find in a regular book, right? The crossover is what's called a novel in verse. So it is a book. It's a novel, but it's told in poem form, like a poetry form, instead of a regular textbook where it's just, you know, just sentences and paragraphs. This has a rhyming scheme, has a very narrative structure, and it's basically a series of poems in a book. But the poems are telling the same story. That makes sense. And that story is Josh Bell and his family and his world, right? And again, if you want to put this definition of novel and verse in your vocabulary journal, you can. I recommend that you do, just so it helps out your understanding a little bit more, right? And dribbling. So dribbling is the first thing that we're going to be looking at in the module, right? For this lesson, dribbling is a little poem in the first 10 pages. The first 10 pages is what we're going to have to read today during class. So hopefully we get through this lesson pretty quick so you can just read it. Because I will keep assigning pages for homework at the end of it. So you just have to read it. This book is very, very easy to read. And for dribbling, I put it in today's folder, 915. And what we're going to do is we're going to annotate it like we did in Module 0, right? So Module 0, I introduced annotating and how important it is. And, you know, annotating is really important because it's basically a tool that we can use to, you know, gather different content information from the text and gather all our evidence together so that we know exactly what's happening in certain parts of the text. And like I said about content and form previously, we can annotate for content and for form. So for content, we can annotate by identifying what the main ideas are, or some character traits, or anything about the anything about the characters, essentially, right? And for form, we can annotate for details about how the text is written and how it looks. And I'm going to show you a little bit more. And these are just a list of questions that you can think about while you're looking at dribbling. So again, I told you dribbling is in the 915 folder. It's right here. So here it is. So this is dribbling. I'm gonna read it for you. And before we read it, look at how it's written, right? So you see the spaces, the spacing of it, the capitalization of certain words, the punctuation, right? Um, you see slipping right here, how it's supposed to be like that, and swoosh. You see how the format of it is very different from any other book that you see, right? And the format is like that because the author wants us to read it a certain way, right? He's basically telling us to use expression, right? So expression is on the next slide. Expression is the way you read aloud or tell a story. And expression is one of the ways that that makes storytelling so powerful because it's your tone while you're reading, right? If you're telling a story, you don't want someone to use the same tone and it's just be, sort of boring. You need some uh, like a mood changer, and using the proper expression while you're reading and using the appropriate pace while you're reading really makes the environment better for it and helps your fluency. You know, so again, you see this bullet point: a fluent reader reads at an appropriate pace, pays attention to words and punctuation, and reads with emotion and expression that are appropriate to the text being read. Right. So expression is very, very, very important, right, while you're reading. And you can definitely see um, how dribbling is set up, the format of it, how the author wrote it. He wants you to use expression while reading this. So I'm going to read this for y'all so you understand how it's supposed to sound, right? Okay, here we go. Dribbling. At the top of the key, I'm moving and grooving, popping and rocking. Why you bumping? Why you locking? Man, take this thumping. Be careful though, because now I'm crunking, crisscrossing, flossing, flipping, and my dipping will leave you slipping on the floor while I swoop in to the finish with a fierce finger roll, straighten the hole, swoosh. So you see how expression is being used while I read this poem, right? On certain words, right? Like moving and grooving, you're supposed to say it a little bit louder than what you would say the first line, right? Because it's all capitalized, it's a lot bigger, and words that are written in a bigger format or capitalized on purpose, you're supposed to read a bit louder, right? So remember, you can look at that and remember those questions I showed you earlier. Like, what do you notice about how this poem appears on the page? It's a very different format, right? It's written in a way where the author wants you to emphasize certain parts, right? And that's what this poem does well. It helps you understand the importance of expression, right? Um, Basically, like, what annotation would you write to the second line? If I was reading this for the first time and I saw it this way, I would say moving and grooving louder than what I would say at the top of the key. It's simple things like that that help you understand how the poem is supposed to be read and how it helps your comprehension and helps your understanding a little bit better, right? And basically the pace of how you read this, it's a little bit faster to read because the spacing of it is very there. The emphasis on certain words makes you read it a little bit faster and louder, right? And whenever you see slipping, some people could read it slower because it seems like it's just you know um, falling down, right? Especially remember, annotating is very, very, very important. Okay, and reading with expression is very important. Whenever you annotate a poem first, it helps you read with expression because you see first how it's supposed to be, how you think it's supposed to be read, but because you're paying attention to the words, the punctuation, capitalization, you're figuring out the pace of the poem. Again, there's a Padlet link there. If you want, you could click on that and answer the sentence frames, right? The sentence frames are one thing I learned about annotating expression is blank. Learning about annotating expression is important because blank. And remember, I gave you those answers when we were talking about them. If you want to do that, you can, or just look through what your fellow classmates are saying. I highly recommend that. So hopefully you understand the power of expression a little bit more. If you don't, please let me know because expression is a very, very, very big thing for this lesson in this module. So here's some additional vocab terms because this book, as you can see, is very basketball heavy. So if you don't know some words, I made a PowerPoint about the terminology that you may not be familiar with. It's located in your 915 folder. Just pictures about some words and the definition of it. So if you don't know what a certain word means, please look through that. And also in that 915 folder, let me go. There is a graphic novel there of the book. Some poems, I think there's like only 2 or 3 poems of it, but there's a graphic novel version of the crossover, and this is the this is like a little bit of it. Okay, and there is an assignment due. Okay, this assignment should be pretty easy. It's 2 things combined in one. It's a Google slide. It's on your course homepage. It's going to be called, let me just show you, Module 1, Lesson 1 assignment. It is right here, right there, 915. I'm going to move this into the assignments due folder soon though. So here it is. Here are the instructions. You have to read Dribbling or just peruse through the poem or use the first 10 pages of it. So 1 observation, 1 wonder, and then finish the sentence frame. There's 2 blanks. Each part is going to be worth 25 points. So there's going to be worth 25, 25, 25, 25. So if you leave 1 blank, you're going to be missing on 25 points. So that's a big one. So don't leave a blank. You can go up to 25 points for each. So please complete that assignment. What is next? I think that's going to be due Wednesday. If you're having trouble accessing it, obviously let me know. And here is the wrap up that we always do at the end of the lesson. The content frame question: what do I notice and wonder about form and content in the crossover? Where we talked about form and content, and you're going to basically answer that by doing the assignment about the notice and wonder. You should be used to notice and wonder by now, okay? And also we went over the form of it by looking at Dribbling and the format of it. And then here's just some module goals, addition to what the learning goals as well. So the learning goals is more about the lesson. The module goal is about the entire module. So these are the goals that I want us to accomplish by the end of this. Number 1 is examine form and content to understand the power of storytelling. Because remember, I told you, you need both of those to have a very effective story and a very powerful story. And number 2 is develop habits of how to read poetry. Okay? And because poetry is going to be a big thing. Remember, we did a poem for Module 0, and the book we're reading, the crossover, is essentially a poem, right? It's novel and verse. And again, if you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, let me know through email, message, or question board. Also, turn in your assignments, do the major assessment if you have not already. And if you have not picked up your book, please, please, please let me know, because you're going to need the book, okay? But other than that, that is it. Please complete the assignment again, and I will see you here for lesson 2.